The following is a presentation on how to write a first-class dissertation. My name is Andreas Samutis. I am a fourth-year medical student at UCL. Last year I just finished my intercalated Bachelor of Science in Surgical Sciences, which is arguably one of the most competitive intercalated bachelors in UCL. I was very fortunate enough to have met and worked with some exceptional people, some very smart people, and they helped me to achieve basically I got the top marks for my dissertation. It was nominated for quite a few stuff, for some awards, and I also got the best undergraduate presentation prize from my faculty. So I basically learned a few stuff, and I wanted to share them with you guys, see what you guys think. So this presentation is going to be, and we're going to cover the hypothesis, aims, how to build those, how to write your dissertation, graphs and statistics, viva, presenting and publishing, and then some examples of my presentations, which you can hopefully learn something from. Through this whole presentation, we're going to show you some tools, websites, links, add-ons, stuff like that, which you can use in order to write your dissertation, hopefully write a first-class dissertation. So let's begin. Hypothesis and aims. When I first went into my dissertation, they gave us some supervisors to choose from and some topics to choose from. And what I did is I went through those topics. I picked the two ones that I liked, and I read a lot about them. So I went into detail, like I read papers and the current literature, systematic reviews, and then I went to meet the supervisor. And then when I went to meet the supervisor, I talked to them. I saw how I vibed with them, and I also saw the potential that could come from this project. The fact that I had studied, that meant that I could have a very deep discussion with the supervisor, and that actually made an impression on the supervisor, which later was better for me because the supervisor would be more likely to choose me since I did more work, etc., and I showed that I was up for it. So the first point here, for finding your hypothesis and your project, basically, it's up to you. The work that you put in, whatever you put in, that's what you're going to get out of it. So that's one thing. The second is, in order to put work in, you have to be passionate about the thing that you like, about the thing that you're studying. So let's say you have, my project was on artificial corneas, so making the front thing of the eye in order to, because there's only transplant, you only transplant corneas now, in order to alternative to that, to make artificial corneas. So when I went and talked to my supervisor, I found out that I was really passionate about this because it's applicable. We'll talk about this in a second. It could make a difference in people's lives. So I was very passionate about it, and that's part of the reason why I did well. So you choose something, be passionate about it. And then the other thing is ask. Ask people when you have questions, ask people from the older years, ask your supervisors, ask people. I think tend to be much more approachable, much more positive, much more willing to help us than we think. So moving on. So this is me. So I chose my project. I really vibed with the supervisor that I found about the cornea project. And the fact that I had that knowledge, I was able to actually, with the supervisor, through the discussion, we found a new aspect that we could actually explore together. So we kind of created the hypothesis at that point there. And because I had that previous knowledge, we were able to build this together. But nevertheless, so I picked that project, etc. And I started my lab work. So I picked the lab project. You can pick either a lab project or a clinical project. And this is a picture of me in the lab, and you can see my face. This is in the first month of the lab work. I do look lost, and I think the first point is that's normal. It's normal to feel lost. It's normal to feel like you don't really know what's going on. And I think especially for the first month, that's part of it. But what I did was, through that first month, I tried to learn as much as possible. I tried to learn the nooks and crannies on where I can find the chemicals, where I can find how to work by myself. I tried to be independent as much as possible. And I also went to PubMed. Most of you know what PubMed is. And I read, and I continued reading. So I did that previous reading, okay, before I went to speak to my supervisor. And then I continued reading through the first month, the current literature, systematic reviews again, other reviews, meta-analysis and stuff like that on my subject. And I was able to have a concept which reformed my hypothesis. So what is a hypothesis? Hypothesis is basically a proposition. Like I say that I have this idea for this new method, and this new method for making artificial corneas, I hypothesize that it's going to be better than the previous method used. As simple as that. There's two things that need to be, that you need to have, that your hypothesis needs to have in order to be a good hypothesis. So the first thing is, it has to be novel. So you have to pick a subject where it's not saturated in research, where the research there is not saturated. So if you have these two methods that I'm going to make the artificial corneas, let's say, if these two methods have been extensively researched, then there's no point in me going into that field, especially at an undergraduate degree, at an undergraduate level. So you want to pick a field that has some research, so it can be a stepping stone for you in order to build something. You don't want to go into a field where it starts from scratch, but it's also novel. It's also easy to go into the novel bit. You want to go into uncharted waters. So that's one point. So you want to do something novel. The second thing for the hypothesis is that it should be relevant. So what I mean by that, it should be, if my hypothesis was to be proven or disproven, so if this method is better or not better, then the result of that should be applicable. It should be applicable to people in the world. So what does that mean? So if this method is better for artificial corneas, then that means that because this method is cheaper, for example, than the other method, then it will be much easier to make artificial corneas, and therefore we would help curing corneal blindness in the world. So I think that hopefully that makes sense. Now, the fourth thing on this slide, the why test. So when I started, let me go to this picture. So this guy here that you see in the back is called Thomas. So the first day of my research project, I go into the lab, and then this guy comes up to me and he's like, so what are you doing today? I'm like, okay, I'm going to be bioprinting some artificial corneas. I'm going to be testing their accuracy. He was like, okay, so why are you doing that? I was like, well, I want to compare it. I was like, compare it to what? I was like, okay, compare it to the other method. It's like, okay, why do you want to compare it? Because I want to see which one is better. So why do you want to see which one is better? So he basically kept on asking why. Because if this one is better, then it'll be cheaper and it'll be more accurate. Okay, why does that matter? It matters, and you keep on asking why until what's going to happen is this is going to take you back to your hypothesis, and all the stuff you do should take you back. It should be like a little tree. It should take you back to your hypothesis, which should be to prove which method is the best in order to help basically people cure corneal blindness. So the point in the why test is, whenever you're doing something, ask, why am I doing this? Moving on. And keep on asking that why until hopefully you get back to your hypothesis. Anyways, so moving on. This is very important. You have to make a plan. You have to make a short-term plan and then a long-term plan. So the short-term plan is what am I going to be doing on an everyday basis, and then the long-term plan is what's my end goal. Plan usually fails. plan usually fails, and this is going to happen quite a few times. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't make a plan, because if you don't make a plan, they're going to slack. Then you're going to wake up and be like, oh, I'll go to the lab the next day. I'll do some work the day after. You have to have a plan. What are you going to do each day? That plan is going to probably fail a lot of times, but then you're going to remake it. Next point, make friends. This is best piece of advice I can give you. Be interested. Be enthusiastic. Go into the lab and see what other people are doing. Ask them about their work. And they're going to tell you. Maybe it has nothing to do with your work, or maybe it has something to do with an aspect of your work. And then what happens is, when you run across a problem, you're going to have people that you know they're going to be doing different projects that have different skills. So for example, there was a point that I had to do some 3D modeling of a cornea, as you can see here. And I had no idea how to 3D model stuff. So I went to a guy that I knew that was doing some 3D printing stuff, because I was pretty interested when I saw him the first day, and we kind of chatted a bit about it. So when I went later to find him, he was like, yes, of course I can help you. You can use this program, Tinkercad, for example. This is the program he showed him. It was a free program online, few stuff, and then I was able to make the stuff. So he helped me. And that's how I got through basically most of my project. For example, then I went back to him. I wanted to print. We're just making some of the stuff for the printers here. And this part here at the top that you see is the 3D printed part that he helped me make. Because, you know, you don't have a lot of time to learn all these different skills, but you can find people and make friends with people that have these skills. So very important. Next point, write everything down. So at the start of the day, I had this little book and I took it with me everywhere. Everything that I did, I wrote down. Even if the experiment failed and I didn't have any use for that, I still continued to write everything down. The reagents I used, the amounts I used, everything. Because, okay, this happened quite a few times to me. And that's why I was like, that's why I'm telling you this. Because it's very important. Imagine something goes right. So you do an experiment and it's successful. And then you're like, oh my God. I don't remember how much I put from that substance. I don't remember how much time I left it to sit. And then you can't replicate it. And that's the most frustrating thing ever. So book, write everything down. Next thing is brainstorm with smart people. So you've made friends and you come across another problem that's quite a complicated problem in your project. And you know that one person can't solve you this. So what I used to do is I have a problem. So this is an example. I wanted to find a reagent for something. And I went and got Alex, who was a postdoc student and a PhD student, Patricia. And I was like, I knew they had two different skill sets that I needed in order to solve my problem. And I was like, can I get you for 5 minutes? So I got them both. We sat on a table and I told them, this is the problem. And I basically allowed them and they talked. I just sat there, kind of guided the discussion a bit, and they found the solution for me, which is amazing. So you can't be an expert at everything, but you can't find the experts for that stuff that you need. Moving on. So a few words about your supervisor. This was my supervisor, Professor Patra Herrick. The first thing to understand is the role. What is the role of my supervisor? Well, it's very important on how the relationship you're going to build with them. So the role is to guide you and to provide you with some feedback. They're not there to write your dissertation, they're not there to do your experiments. Forget about that. You're there to do that stuff. You need to learn the character of your supervisor. There's a lot of supervisors that want to be more invested and some people that are going to be a bit more distant. You need to learn that from the beginning so you can know what to expect. I usually say expect the least and push for the best. And you usually do this at the beginning of the first meeting you're going to have with your supervisor, and you're going to discuss the relationship you're going to have. You're going to tell your supervisor, I want this and this and this. I want to meet once every month. I'm going to give you, for the first month, I'm going to give you my introduction. I'm going to give you my methods, and I want feedback on it. And then your supervisor is going to also ask from you some stuff that he wants from you. And then you got a relationship where you set the expectations. You set the expectations, and now you know what to expect. If you don't set the expectations and you just let stuff go, and then your supervisor sends you some 2-3 lines of feedback, and then you get angry and you get mad with your supervisor, which has happened so many times, so many people that I know, then it's sad because you come to the end of your dissertation and then you don't really know where to get the help from. So that's why if you know what to expect, then you can find help from other resources as well, from other people as well, maybe get feedback from other people. And whenever you put those meetings, so you said with your supervisor, we're going to have a meeting this day and this day, etc., once every month, you are the expert. So what does this mean? Your supervisor is there to guide you. He has an umbrella view of whatever's going on in that field, but he's not going to know as much stuff as you know. So you are the expert, so you come and you are prepared and you know what you're going to talk to. You know what you're going to bring up in the discussion, and you're going to guide the discussion. So don't go there waiting for the supervisor to tell you what to do, or yeah, it's basically on you. And I think that should bring us to the end of this section. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed these, please consider subscribing. It makes a big difference. Please comment. This is important. Comment and put feedback in the comments. The reason why I've done the series is because I've actually given these lectures to students in UCL in third year, and I've gotten back feedback which I was very surprised by, which is very good. Yeah, they enjoyed it. They got a lot of it, and I was like, because I got that feedback, that motivated me to do this and put it outside, etc. So if there's something that you want to know, or if you like this, etc., say it, and then you basically motivate us in order to make more content that's going to be helpful, hopefully, for you guys. If it's not helpful, say it. And give us a like. That helps as well. That's about it. And all the institutions, you could see them. Yeah. Thank you.